This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Ooh, well, this does not look good.
Well, I suspect it's because you are outnumbered.
Outnumbered? Remember, I spent points on minions.
Jerry, you spent a point on minions.
A single point? I'm not even sure what that gets you.
Looks like 3 cats.
Well, what kind of cats?
Just 3 cats.
Like normal cats?
I mean, technically, if you're going by the rules here, he spent a point, so they're not normal. They're exceptional, like, for cats.
We are so screwed.
To be my minions!
Meow?
And with that, welcome to the 437th episode of the Misdirected Mark Podcast. Tonight, we are discussing using minions and hench people in your games, as both player and GM. Along the way, we're going to take your suggestions, comments, examples, the chat room for life before jumping into the after show. But first, my name is Jerry.
My name is Phil.
And I am Old Man Logan.
May I first just start by recognizing the word hench people?
Yes.
Which I love, but I think that maybe what we need is to use the more modern term of like independent contractor.
Yes.
I've always used the term flunky.
Yeah, I mean, flunky kind of denotes like some sort of lack of skill or whatever, but independent contractor might also be a good term for our topic tonight.
And of course,
independent contractor implies that you actually pay them. So hench people can actually be unpaid.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't trump your hench people.
You said the T word.
I know.
Hey,
I'll only say it once.
How about that temperature check?
We should do that.
Yeah.
The mood is light. So, Phil, how you feeling?
Kind of garbage. Maybe good word for it. I've had my ups and downs this past week. I don't know, a few panic attacks, a pretty crushing bout of depression on Saturday.
Oh no.
And yeah, I'm just kind of stringing it along right now. So
Man,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
I'm what you call high functioning, right? So I just, this trash can of my this trash can of my mental health just keeps rolling, makes podcasts and goes to work and stuff. Anyway, otherwise physically I feel fine. I got a few bike rides in earlier, like this weekend and earlier this week. So physically I feel better. I always feel better if I ride. Yeah, I don't know. That's me. How about you, Jer?
Fairly decent. It's been a hectic couple of days just because of work. Everything from employees leaving to employees getting sick, and just the fact that we're kind of winding out the month. So the last week of the month is always a little bit hectic. But it's not been too bad. It's been a little bit hectic, I guess I'd just say. It's been quick days at work, though, which is good. I've been smart enough to get to bed at a decent hour, so I've been getting between 5 and 6.5 hours sleep every night, which is a lot of fun. So as opposed to my normal, 3 to 6. So it's much better. So, Bob, how about you?
3 to 6, man. Oh, I could not function with that for more than like a day and a half.
You get used to it.
I suppose.
I rarely get more than, I spent years where I was getting, where I was going to bed for 4 to 5 hours a night at most and getting half that actual sleep. So my sleep apnea.
Yeah. So. I feel pretty good, physically, and mentally. It's, an average day. It was pretty mellow. So I'm gonna chalk that up as good. And let's jump into the one thing. There is an echo in my house. There's an echo in my house because there's a big chunk of empty space. Today was moving day, and my housemate isn't all gone. There's a whole thing with the movers. Essentially,
There always is.
There always is. They couldn't fit all the stuff on the truck, and because of reasons, and so there's still like, you know, a third of the stuff here. But you know, what are you gonna do? All the big pieces, all the real furniture-y stuff is gone. So this big empty space, my dining room / living room area, the one big room with the hardwood floors, is mostly empty. So it's like this big echo chamber. But, you know, it's that's the beginning of the next phase of my life. So yeah, I'm ready to do the thing. I've got my recliner set up like in the middle of the room now, pointing at the TV.
So it'll be nice to actually depart your room to go do stuff.
Yeah, before the weekend is up, I figure I'm not going to do it during the week because I still have work to do during the weekdays, and I've got stuff to do on the evenings this week. So on like Friday night for a while, and then Saturday, Sunday, Monday, when the holiday weekend is, over the course of the weekend, I'm going to move my bed upstairs to the actual bedroom, and then I will have a clear separation between sleeping area and work and podcasting and all that stuff. And so yeah, that'll be a thing.
Yeah, that's going to be really nice.
Excuse me. All right, Jerry, what about you?
I watched Army of the Dead. It is a fun zombie heist film. Not that, well, actually, I'm just going to leave that alone. It's a fun zombie heist film. This is a fun film. It is a turn off your brain and enjoy it kind of film. If you think about like the science behind it or some of the things that go on in it. I mean, any movie, and this is not a secret, they talk about it in the first opening part. Any movie where they plan to detonate a nuke at some point, you know that the science is going to be completely goofy. But if you just turn off your brain and enjoy it, it's a fun action film. It's got some good story. They did a good job of developing the characters so that I think 8 or 10 characters that you meet, you know enough about all of them to care about them so that when horrible things begin to happen, you're like, oh no, or I really hope they survive. And there's a couple of really good, fist pump moments as well. It's just a fun movie. If you like action flicks, if you like Dave Bautista, if you like creative zombie idea movies, if you like heist movies, these are all things that all kind of come together. I mean, there's even a bit of a flashback mechanic in it. So there's a lot of that. So it's a fun film. If it sounds like something, if any part of that sounds like something you enjoy, you'll probably enjoy it. I would not give it a 10 out of 10, but it's a good solid 7.5 or 8. And that's all I'll say. It's good fun. Phil, what's your one thing?
I read Mercy Volume 2 this weekend.
You got your copy?
Well, it came out on Comixology, so I got a digital. I downloaded it digitally. I actually read Mercy Volume 1 and then Volume 2 because I didn't want to forget anything. So for people who don't know, Mercy is the continuation of Sunstone. It's actually, I think, Sunstone Mercy. Yeah. It's a continuation of Sunstone, which is just, that is an amazing set of graphic novels about BDSM and falling in love and things like that. And Mercy continues that along by now telling the stories of how the minor characters in the from Sunstone met and their relationships and their explorations of sexuality, queerness, kink, things like that. Yep. If you have not read Sunstone, I can't even recommend it enough. It is absolutely amazing. The story is beautiful. The kink is handled both well and very tastefully. Yep. The artwork is amazing. And the characters are entirely human and real. And while I like my BDSM at times fantastic and, somewhat unrealistic, Sunstone portrays a very realistic BDSM couple. Yes. Like really human, what it's really like to be in the lifestyle. with
What is it
things
to-
with things that work and don't work, and like when things go wrong and all of those things.
What it's like to learn about the lifestyle when you think you're vanilla, but think that you might not be vanilla, and
Yes.
how you deal with all those problems as well. It's a very
Yeah.
touching, positive, and there's a lot of drama, which is also fun.
Yeah, and so Mercy just continues this storyline because you now get to meet and you get the backstories to some of the other characters, and so Mercy focuses on Alan and his girlfriend, which is great because you kind of learn her story, and then Alan's story is intertwined with Allie, like how they both got into BDSM.
Mhm.
So it's just great, and it's beautiful, and they're fantastic to read. So I pretty much just dedicated my weekend free time to reading Mercy Volume 1 and 2. And it was great. No regrets whatsoever. But now again, I'll just have to wait like another year for the next one to come out, because they come out like about once a year. If you're a patron, I think Jerry is, like, you get to see it as they kind of go in production. But I'm the kind of person who doesn't read the rules to a Kickstarter game until they're finalized. So I just don't touch it until it's like actually, I don't touch it till it's actually out.
And to be clear, sorry,
Yeah.
I just want to make a point because Cassandra brought it up, and just in case, we want all the bases covered. When you said minor characters earlier, secondary characters, there's no underage people in like just
Correct.
to be 100% above board.
100% correct.
They're secondary characters to the original story.
Yes. I was just talking off the cuff and used the word.
The creators are very, very much aware of like age limits and everything. Like there's no. It is
single-handedly one of
positive.
Yeah, it's one of the. It's probably, in terms of reading material and stuff, it's one of the most kink positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Reads that I've had.
The art is gorgeous. The creator, I can never pronounce his name, but
Stefan Sajic.
Amazing artist.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So anyway, that was my weekend read. I 100% enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Good. It was good. All right, quick announcements. I'll do just a really short one. Voyager Week 12. We're still doing it. We are into our second week of season 5. Tonight we are watching one of my all-time favorite Voyager episodes, which is Timeless. It's a kick-ass story. It has a kick-ass cameo in it, and it's just a lot of fun. So that's our second watch for tonight. The first one is also good. The first one will have you going, what? Which I think is kind of one of Voyager's specialties now. They've gotten really good at that. Like making you really confused or gasp before they hit the opening credits. Like their cold opening is pretty, their cold opening game is pretty solid. And tonight's no exception. And then later this week, we have one of, next to Tuvix, as I said to you guys earlier, next to Tuvix, it is one of the best ethical dilemmas episodes in the series. It's fantastic. As soon as it came on, when I was watching it last summer, I was like, oh, this is like we're gonna have a good time this week. Anyway, awesome. We don't have a large number of episodes this week. With the holiday weekend coming up, I didn't want to overload people, but you'll get your fix. Jer,
all right.
Tell me about the hardest working man in RPGs. That's not Jason Pitt. Jason's here, so not to be confused with Jason. Tell me about the American hardest working man in RPGs. Is up to something that's not even RPG related, because that's how hardworking they are.
And this is our game designer in front of the show, Eloy Lasanta. He has a new musical release with his band, Strays of the World. It's his first album. The new album, In My Head, is available on his website, straysoftheworldmusic.com, which will be in the notes. It is also now in the stream. It's a mix of rock and funk and pop. And when he first sent me a single song from it, I wasn't sure that was my kind of cup of tea. And then I listened to the song, and it is an earworm. And then I listened to the rest of the snippets. You can hear snippets of all the songs on his website. You can also download My Siren, which is the first song that he sent, and that one is much catchier than I was expecting. I enjoyed it. I was listening to it. I'm like, I'm not sure this is my thing. By the end of it, I'm like, God damn it! Now I gotta listen to it again. It's a lot of fun.
If people didn't know, like Eloy's very eclectic, and so besides doing all of his role playing stuff, Eloy for a while has been podcasting. He's been doing I think YouTube videos, not podcasts, about Prince. Eloy's like a huge Prince fan. Fan's not even the right word, like scholar at this point. And you know, had been doing YouTube video series based on that, and then I think just kind of drifted into like, I think I'm just gonna write some music. And you know, it's Eloy. Like when Eloy puts his mind to something, like he's just gonna go get it done, and he did. It's awesome.
And it's good.
He's great.
It's good. So if you want to listen to some rock funk pop, there we go. I guess pop is a combination of
word
scramble. Pop. There we go.
Careful there.
But it's a lot of fun. And I would recommend it. It's been out for about just over 2 weeks, and it's a good music list. So give it a shot.
Cool.
Although we said hi. All right.
That brings us to the feature segment, which of course is one of our favorites, the workshop. Gird yourself, Phil. And
workshop, it's time for the minions. Sit back in your headquarters, send them out to do your bidding. Protect yourself with a ring of minions so that none of the heroes can get to you. Use those minions effectively. You're going to learn how here in the workshop.
Don't suck.
Literally do not write any of those. I'm pretty sure everybody can tell.
So tonight's workshop is going to be about mastering minions. These are the minor characters that assist the more significant NPCs and the PC. And we're going to start by doing what we do best, which is look at what minions do, what they do in the game, give advice on GMs using minions, and provide some tips on how to use them best as a player. And in the second half of the segment, we'll at the round table talk about our own experiences with minions.
And of course, in order to get this discussion underway, we need to set up some definitions. So, Phil.
Behold! You are in the presence of Definition Panda.
Righto. All right, let's kick it off with we got a bunch of terms tonight, but we're going to kick it off with the most obvious one, which is minion. Right, a follow or underling of a powerful person, especially a servile or unimportant one. In RPGs, nearly in all cases, minions is kind of a type of NPC. They're almost always a lower power / skill level than the PCs or the major NPCs. They often serve more powerful characters, right? So they might serve like a big boss. They might be the minions of a lieutenant of like another, like, you know, big boss or something like that. They could even be in service to a PC. So we'll talk about that as well. Next term, mook, a stupid or incompetent person. This term often gets used interchangeably with minions in many games, right? So some games will refer to like mook rules. I don't know. It may come up in tonight's discussion. I probably will just use minion as the more common term.
Yep.
Gang or mob. I don't think I need to describe. I don't need to define it. But in terms of RPGs, this is usually a reference to a group of minions. And depending on the game you're playing, that group of minions could be represented by a single mechanical entity within the game. And that we'll get into why that could be important or why that could be useful for you as we get further into the show. Hireling, a person employed to undertake menial work. These are minions that are employed by someone to do a task for them. In the old days, it was common, like the old days of D&D, it was common to have hirelings help with things like carrying your treasure, being a scribe, your basic weapons caddy, right? Like, just carrying all your gear, that kind of thing. Hench person a faithful follower or political supporter, especially one prepared to engage in a crime or dishonest practices by way of service. I love it. In AD&D, back in the days, these were considered higher level hirelings, right? Like they were better hirelings. It's not really as much of a thing now, I think, in D&D. And it's more often attributed to like minions, right? Like when you say hench person, like it's more often like minions who follow like a villain or somebody who's doing crimes. And then lastly, followers, an ardent or devotee of a particular person, cause, or activity. These are minions who join a character's cause. They still require things like upkeep and salary and stuff like that, but their reason for joining wasn't for the pay. It's because they believe in whomever they're following, in what they do, what they say, or who they are, right? So it's a different kind of minion, but it gets at the reason why they're there.
All right. So with those terms set, Jerry, what can you tell us about what makes up a minion?
Well, let's see. So what makes them tick? In terms of mechanics, the minion's often going to be a simplified version of the character. They have a few noteworthy stats and skills, but none of them are going to be exceptionally high. In many cases, the value's going to be half or lower. They're also going to have very little equipment, weapon, or armor. Whatever is going to make sense for the game, but nothing super detailed. And if they have any kind of power, it's normally just one or two powers, and they're normally going to be at a very low level. They're henchmen.
Right.
Yeah. Yes. There's a note in here from if you've listened to the movie Double Dragon. At the very end, it ends with the two main henchmen standing by the side of the road with a sign that says, "We'll hench for food," because they're now out of work.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what they need. So,
right.
Bill?
Yeah, narratively, a minion may or may not even have a name. If there's only a few of them, then maybe they're going to have individual names, right? Roderick the Torchbearer, Alwyn the Sage, that kind of thing. Or the entire group of minions may just have a name, right? Like the Fifth Street Devil Cats, right? Like they're a gang. And they don't have individual names for the sake of the story unless it's needed, right? They rarely have individual descriptions. Though if you have a group of them, right? Like a gang, like a mercenary group or something like that, they might have a uniform or colors or something to denote them, right? Like we can tell these guys are the, mercenaries of so-and-so because, of the patch on their arm or something like that. And that's often
old school Cyberpunk.
What's that?
It's the booster games from old school Cyberpunk.
Exactly. Yeah. And basically that's just done to help kind of code them as so that who they are. Mm-hmm. But again, not terribly significant in the case in the course of the narrative.
Now, depending on the game you play, you might also have a mechanical representation of a mob. The mob is going to be an aggregate of minions together. And depending on the system, there will be rules on how to aggregate their mechanical stats to something more powerful.
Right. So, for instance, like if you have a group of 3 to 5 minions, then you just take like maybe in the game we're talking about completely hypothetical. You just take their stats, but you add a +1 to it because there are 3 to 5 of them now working in concert.
Genesis does that, where basically a minion group they give you a single stat, and then for every additional minion in the group, you bump up the die size by 1, and you roll 1 set of dice for all those minions acting at once.
Exactly. And
it becomes a mechanic representation, so you're not stuck rolling handfuls of dice over and over again.
We're going to talk about that in a little bit as well. But Fate does the same thing, right? Fate has ways to group up minions and things like that.
Excellent. So, this is all done for a number of different reasons. Number one is that it reduces the number of turn resolutions the GM has to take.
Yeah, if there are 10 minions and each of them, technically has an individual turn, which you could do if you're playing, the GM has to take 10 actions and then resolve them all. Like this minion's going to attack Bob, this minion's going to attack Jerry, this minion's going to attack Cinda, this minion's going to attack Bob, like, and on and on and on, right? Like, you could do that. You just, it's going to take a while.
But by reducing it down, it speeds up combat much faster.
Yeah, the GM just takes that mob and breaks it up into a number of groups. Like, well, there's 3 of you in this scene. I got 10 minions. I'm going to do group of 3, group of 4. And they're going to attack.
This also allows the minions to be a threat to the characters.
Yeah, like a single minion, might not pose a threat, like, to a character, right? Like, you just, there's nothing they could do to hurt this character based on their armor or something. But if the minion rules scale up, 30 of those minions might actually be a real threat to a single character.
That can be quite the sight to come around a corner and see 30 minions all coming at you. All right, so now that we know what makes up a minion, why do we even have them in our games, Phil?
Yeah, what do they do? Like, why have them if they're so weak? Why have them, Look, there's a number of reasons, right? We're going to do this in the Pandas way. We're going to do it as a GM, from the GM side, and as a player. So starting with the GM, minions are an obstacle that characters have to overcome to get to the boss. And I mean this in a few ways, right? So in the most literal sense, in combat, minions are often frontline combatants, right? They're the ones the heroes have to plow through in order to get a shot at the boss, right? Like, think of the opening of Avengers 2, right? Like, just plowing through minions. Minions are also an extension of the boss's power, and thus they're going to be located in places. Oh, I'm sorry, Jerry, I'm taking this from you. I'll just take it, and then you can take the examples. Minions are also an extension of the boss's power, and thus they're located in places where work is being done for the boss without the boss having to be involved.
So, for example, in a game where the boss is a drug kingpin, the minions are going to be the street dealers, the drug runners, people with the drugs, some of the lower-level bodyguards, etc. And the heroes, as they rotate in proximity to the boss, are going to have to deal with some of these minions in various ways.
Yeah, exactly, right? So minions also allow the GM to have a single powerful boss, but still make combat challenging, right? Because especially if you've got gang and mob rules for minions, then you can quick group them up into into an encounter that's actually pretty formidable. Because otherwise, if you have like one boss and like 5 characters bust in the room, I mean, we all know how this goes. In a matter of, in a game that possesses combat by attrition, 5 to 1 is not going to take long for the players to grind that boss down. So by having all those minions and throwing them into groups and mobs, or even if just single, like the players just have to wade their way through 20 or 30 minions, you're giving the big boss a chance.
Yep. And that becomes much more fun. So, the other thing is going to be that minions are going to be expendable. This allows the boss to do things without putting themselves at risk. They can harass the players, they can show up, they can chase the characters around town, they can sneak into their house, they can even get captured and interrogated. And it still means the boss hasn't put themselves at risk.
Exactly. Look, let's be honest. Minions make characters look and feel good. Minion encounters are fun. And players love mowing down minions in combat. Like, I've never seen a player be disappointed about running through a whole group of minions in a combat. Now,
the minions also allow the boss to have a wide range of influence. This allows the boss to affect many things but still be a single entity. They can be several places at once because their minions are carrying out their will. And it doesn't have to be a drug kingpin. It can be something as simple as a dragon who has a bunch of kobolds who are out stealing from the public and making life difficult for the heroes long before they get there.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about in past episodes when we talked about different types of opposition, the puppet master and the hive mind usually are composed of minions, right? So that's, again, we've talked about different ways to kind of express how minions could be deployed by those forms of opposition. All right, so from the player side, minions do some similar things. But probably the most important thing that minions do for players is they provide access to skills that the players lack. Like, typically when you are a player, you hire a minion, a independent contractor, because of their skill set, right? So like maybe you need a scribe. because no one has access to that skill or no one wanted to take it. So you still need it for the game, but nobody wants it. So you're just like, you know what? For a few gold pieces, we'll just get a scribe, take them with us. They can also be additional combatants depending on the type of minion or follower. Like, this is pretty common with followers. Like, followers are part of the cause, right? So like fighting bad guys and things like that, that's kind of like where followers shine. You might have a similar experience with your higher persons, but they're there for the money. And if they're just like, if they're just watching their coworkers getting walked into a meat grinder, like, they may not be as down for the money.
Yep.
Right. And that's the difference when we talk about the definition of hireling and follower, right? A follower is there for the cause. So if it's tough, if the odds look bad or whatever, the follower is like there because they believe in it. The hireling's there because you put coin in their pocket.
Yep.
And maybe you need to put more coin in, or you have not put enough.
Yeah.
When I did the very first game that I worked on, with a Black Book, the whole point of the adventure was, as you're going around rescuing the people in the castles, that they were adding additional skills and such to your group, and the better you rolled and the better you treated them, the more they would be able to do for you. If you treated them like crap, they weren't going to help you. And that's what you have to continue to remember, that they may or may not be expendable depending on your character types.
Yep.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, I think that's, first of all, I think that's an awesome idea for a game. And I can also remember being rotten fifth graders and hiring townspeople as trap finders. Like the kinds of things that fifth graders are wont to do. No, it's safe. Go down that hallway. Chunk. Oh, not safe. Get another town person.
You should just hire dwarves for that.
Right.
You guys. All right. So now that we know what minions can do, what advice can we give GMs for getting the most out of them, Jerry?
All right. So for GMs, first thing we'll say is that if you're going to have minions, you want to track their usage for them. We're going to talk about these, as always, in no particular order. And, of course, it's an incomplete list. But here are some of our best advice for getting the most out of your minions.
Yeah, first one, minions are for more than just combat, right? Minions, like we said, gives the boss a long reach. For minor things, send the minions to go do the work. When you have more important things, use more significant NPCs. But really, if we're talking about a big boss, you have a few tiers of people. Mm-hmm. So for more important things, you send some minions with a lieutenant.
I mean, that's where chain of command comes in too. Your big boss is going to be like, hey, lieutenant, go take care of this thing. Lieutenant's going to turn around and go, hey, minions, go take care of this thing.
Sure.
Yep. Exactly. Right. And sometimes it's fun to just let the players mow down a bunch of minions. That's what they're there for. Similar to Sword Without Master's Rogue phase, a minion battle showcases all the cool things about the characters. Think about the opening to Avengers 2, the battle in Sokovia, where they start off by attacking the Hydra base. You see the Avengers do their thing. Something that we've seen in a lot of games about 5 to 10 years ago was that minions always seemed to level up with the players to the point where they never got to be really cool. It was nice to be a 12th level fighter, but if everything you fight is a 12th level fighter, it's no fun. Once in a while, you have to have that adventure where the town's under attack, a bunch of bandits, and all the bandits are second level and think they're attacking the town, and instead they're coming up against the Magnificent Seven. That becomes a fun fight for the players again. Once in a while, let them just show their mastery of their abilities.
Next one. If your game has mob/gang rules, use them to simplify combats involving lots of minions, right? So if you're if you're running a combat with 10, 20 or more minions, it would be positively brutal to run and do everybody's turn resolution. In fact, you actually almost can't, because what happens if you're playing tactically is only so many characters, 8, can get around a particular character. and everybody else is back. And then like, unless you're getting super fancy with reach weapons and nonsense like that, like there's a limit to how many people can attack individually. But if you chunk them up into mobs and you have the mob attack, one, it's going to simplify how many interactions you have to do, how many turns you have to resolve. And two, they're often a bit tougher. Keep the, it'll make the players bite their nails a bit more.
Yeah. And same note, group your minions based on the type of opposition you want them to be foreseen. If you want a tougher opponent, make them larger but fewer in the mob size. If you want easier opponents, then make smaller mobs, but make more mobs. Because you can just kind of chop through them as they go.
Yeah. Next tip. Your boss should always have a few minions around for shielding. Minions are effective meat shields for your boss, right? Since most games do not have splash damage or trample, if we're using the Magic Gathering term, a meat shield can take a full blast from a PC and protect the minion for a turn. For games like Savage Worlds, I never put the big boss around by themselves. I always sprinkle in a few minions around them, at least as a halo of minions, to prevent that like one long shot where the player's like, I'm gonna shoot the big boss from here, and then winds up exploding 6 dice and ending the game in one turn kind of thing. So where possible, keep your minions out to keep your boss shielded, especially in the early phases of combat.
Right. And then consider how your minions are going to act for the boss and make them act accordingly. Because not all minions are going to want to die for the boss. Some of them, it's just a job. If you remember the scene from Iron Man 3, where his armor comes one piece at a time and he's chained to the bed, and he slowly beats up most of the guys. He pulls out his glove at the last guy, and the last guy puts his gun down and says, you know what? These people are weird. I just work here. They're so weird, I'm leaving. And he lets them go. Because sometimes they're just going to... minions are paid assets. They break and run. However, devout followers of a boss, cult members, people who are in love with the boss, and so on, they may stay around and fight to the bitter, bitter end. So give that some thought. You might have minion groups that some work one way, some work another. And that can help to delineate what they are and how they work.
Yeah, absolutely. Consider if your minions have a general look or not, right? Some minions are just hired muscle, right? They don't look like anything, right? They're just, a bunch of tough people in street clothes or whatever. Like a group of drug runners, like in a cartel game, like they're probably not going to have a uniform because they don't want to get picked out as being part of a group. Mm-hmm. But, the members of the World Revolutionary Army of Ithor 5, like they're probably going to have a uniform or at least some markings to indicate who they are. Yeah. And not all markings need to be a uniform, right? It could be a tattoo. Think of like, if you want to get like really covert, think of like Black Panther, right? The Wakandan tattoo on the inside of the tongue, or I'm sorry, inside of the lip. Like that's super cool. Like that's one where even if you don't have a shirt on or whatever, you're not giving up your, you're not indicating where you're like who you're aligned with. Yeah. Uniforms do a few things though. Uniforms and markings do a few things, right? And this is why it's important to give this some consideration. First of all, they show allegiance to a cause, right? So if you're wearing the World Revolutionary Army uniform, we kind of know a little bit about who this minor character, this secondary character is. It also shows a sign of greater organization. When you encounter if you encounter a couple street thug minions and they're just dressed in like regular street clothes and you run through them, you don't really know how many more there are, right? Like you just fought some street thugs. But if you like fight some people in uniforms, there's a pretty good logical leap that if a group has uniforms, there's probably a good number of them. And that's just like a little logical leap that people make, right? You could totally subvert that as well, right? So you could totally give uniforms to like this really small group. Yeah. Right. Like, and just have fun with that. But in general, if a group of minions have a set uniform, they're probably part of something bigger. And then the other thing it does is like, it helps you identify friend from foe, right? It helps them identify friend from foe. But also later for the PCs, like it's helpful for them. Like, oh, we've seen this marking before. We know who you serve.
Yeah.
Yep.
That whole bit reminds me of one or more, because I'm pretty sure it was more than one or more of the Batman 66 villains, where they would have henchmen with like the same clothes on, and like some of them actually had henchmen written on.
Yep.
Like,
yes,
super campy, but it's like, I'm a henchman, you know?
Yep.
Part of me now wants like a Batman 66 henchman shirt in the same way that I want a John Belushi college sweatshirt.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. That was a common thing, especially with I think it was the Penguin that did that a lot.
Yeah.
I think all of them did it eventually. So,
I think running not necessarily Batman, but I think running a totally campy game in that kind of genre could be a really fun one-off kind of thing. Just like that kind of ridiculous nonsense.
Oh my God. I just had to do a quick Google search. The Riddler, I think. No, Penguin. Penguin had guys that had goon written on their shirt. He had guys that had henchmen written on their shirt.
Well, it's important to differentiate like the different skill sets, right? Like, wait, I need somebody to beat somebody up. A goon, you.
Yeah.
Don't send a henchman for a goon's job.
Yes.
Right.
All right.
That's exactly it.
It's great.
So, and a minion encounter is also a great way to introduce a new boss to a story. Have the heroes come upon the minions and easily overtake them is a great launch for a new story. But when you see that they have uniforms or tattoos, you begin to realize that there's some sort of organization, and if it isn't obvious that they've taken out the main villain, now you've got some hints that something more sinister is coming, and that becomes much more dangerous.
Yeah, it's a great opening, right? Like you know, couple like somebody's breaking into a warehouse or something. You finish them off, and they all have the same tattoo, and you're like, anybody know what this is? No, but they all have the same tattoo, so that's worrying.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
All right, cool. So, since minions are not just for GMs, what advice do we have for the players, Phil?
Minions, they're not just for dinner. No. Yeah, when it comes to players having minions, right, there's some ways to get, like, we got some tips for how to get the most out of them. Starting with this one here, use minions for skills that you're missing in your group, right? That should be obvious, that no one wants or has access to. Right? If you're playing a game and nobody wants to be the healer, just go hire one.
Yep.
Solves your problem.
Yep.
Give them a cut of the treasure, and you got a healer and nobody has to worry about it.
Yep.
Now, number 2, decide if you want support minions and or frontline minions. Your support minions are the ones you keep back at camp or at the base. They're going to from the support staff that help you when you're not in direct danger. These are your scribes, your scholars, your surgeons, and mechanics. These are all your support. You try to keep them out of harm's way, but handle the downtime activities. These are the kind of minions I love. But my aforementioned thing, one of the we had was one of the minions that they could pick up was a gnome who was basically the quartermaster. And if you were nice to him and gave him time with stuff, you could often find things quicker. You got an automatic quick draw once per game because he always made sure to fit you properly and make sure everything was snug, and you can pull that out later on. Simple bonuses that people could look at getting. And this is something that really happens. There are people I've got a cousin-in-law who does this for the military. And one of the things he does is before pilots fly out, he goes up and inspects their entire gear kit and goes through it and makes sure that everything is exactly where it's supposed to be and easily in reach. And if they don't have everything where it is, they don't fly that day. But his job is to make sure everything is quickly available for them. And I thought that was kind of a neat thing that, I mean, that's this guy's only job. And I thought that'd be a neat fantasy trope would be, what if you had a minion whose job it was to cook and clean, but also maintain all your gear for you, sharpen your swords and all that kind of fun stuff, and give a little mechanical effect, which is nice. So
I'll tell you that if I was doing that in Fate, what I would do with the minion rules for my theoretical Fate fantasy game that I'm just making up in my head right now, what I would wind up doing is that those hirelings would basically be they would be an aspect with one invoke on it per day that the party could access, because like, you know, the quartermaster like checks everybody's gear, and you've got, you know, some aspect that's like all my gear's on tight, right?
Yep.
With one invoke on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, you know, somebody slips off a cliff and you grab them, like, you know, you grab them by the armor and you're like, oh, I need like 2, you know, I'm going to take that invoke, and good thing your armor was on nice and tight. Like, and
Yep.
Exactly. Like, it'd be totally fun to just have a collection of the, like, those aspects from, like, the, you know, from your support staff.
And then you can even level them up, and they can be $1.25 quartermaster.
Oh, how long have you been sitting? You were sitting on that for a while, weren't you? Feel like you sat on that one for a little while.
That may actually be how my character in the Dresden Files is the head of a coven. Or actually, the coven, kind of how the coven rules work for Dresden Files, is that you have an invoke with the number of your coven members to use. So that works.
Cool.
Which, of course, is why Fate is a better game than the Passing Trip, which is what I was writing earlier. At least better adapted for this.
I don't remember because it's been years ago, but we did, when we did Part-Time Gods of Fate, we had rules for worshippers.
Yep.
And worshippers did stuff for you. Like, the reason you had them was because they actually could help you with stuff.
Yep.
Mechanically. Cool. Yeah. Oh, right. Frontline minions. So frontline minions are the ones that you take into the field and get caught in encounters with you, right? These minions wind up providing skills and abilities, but they're in the direct line of danger. They can get caught in a fireball blast. They can get trampled, you know, by a creature, something like that. In most cases, you do not need to take your scribe with you. You can leave them back at camp, but you might have a combat medic. You know, a cleric that's going to run out and in the middle of combat throw some healing on people, or, you know, bring somebody back from the dead if they make a fail a death save, whatever. The thing about frontline minions, and the reason why you kind of want to make sure you know, like, what you're doing with your minions, is that they're potential targets, right? So outfit them properly, figure out how to protect them. You know, it's going to be hard to hire another combat medic if you've, like, gotten 3 combat medics killed in your last dungeon crawl.
At that point, you start nicknaming your combat medic Kenny.
Yeah, or new guy. We're not learning your name. We're not learning your name until the next dungeon. Like,
you got to survive at least one encounter before we friggin' give you.
We learn your name.
Why didn't we name the horse? Well, don't name anything you might have to eat later.
Oh, take the next one, Jer.
Right. If you can, find if your minions can advance, and if so, work to advance them. If the game has rules for advancing minions, take advantage of them. This could be anything from adding more invokes to it, to giving them some actual skills, to making them actual minor NPCs. But if your game does have rules for this, ask your GM if you can house rule one. Perhaps they're going to advance as your character advances, but at a lesser rate. This was one of the problems they had with some of the D20 systems where, for example, a druid could get a certain number of hit dice worth of creatures every level, but they were all going to be level 1 hit dice creatures. By the time you're 8th level, it doesn't matter if you've got 24 1 hit dice creatures, they're all going to die in the first combat encounter.
Yeah.
So make sure that your creature can advance with you as you go. And over time, you're going to want your minions to progress and get better at what they're doing, or be better at surviving combat, or better at protecting you.
$1.25 quartermaster.
Yep.
I don't know, Bob, if you remember, we had. Oh, you know what? I'll talk about it at the break. Remind me about the caddy story.
The caddy.
Next thing is you can use minions as guest characters, right? You have somebody stopping in for an evening, like popping by, and you have a frontline minion, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you can give them to that player. Like, hey, you know, we're already in the middle of a crawl or something, but, you know, you could play our healer for tonight. Mm-hmm. And just let them jump in. You know, you might want to bump up their stats or something so that, you know, they're not completely pitiful, but give them something to do. Let them, you know, throw some spotlight on them, that kind of thing. But it's a great way to just kind of pull somebody in If they're just, if they're literally like, and I've had this before, right? I've had friends pop into town and it's game night and they're like, oh, can I get in on a game? And you're like, we're like in the middle of something. Yeah, you can. Like, you can be the driver tonight, and I'm gonna just I'll give you some stats, and I'm gonna make some cool shit for the driver to do tonight. Cool, like yeah, come on over.
You can be our fine pony, Bill.
Pony boy? What? No, pony. No, never mind. Go, Jerry. Go.
Depends on the game you're playing.
Yes, it does.
Yep. Now, and I'm gonna jump onto that same thing before we go into my topic, which is you can also use them in situations where one player is doing something and the minions are around. You let the other players jump into a scene that they're not in. So in the ways we do with other NPCs, if you've got a scene where Bob's fighter is out negotiating in town and he's got the scribe with him, and this is going to be, a 10-minute scene, well then, Senda can jump in as the scribe and play the scribe along the way and, add stuff, ask questions, interact with Bob, and so on. It's another character that the players can interact with and play with, and it allows characters to be the players to be more active in scenes that their characters aren't always in. And I always like that as a situation. So even if it's just as a mouthpiece. So, but on top of that, over time, you can eventually promote these minions to PCs. If the game goes on long enough, you can tire some of the main PCs and make your minions into characters. This can be a neat way to make a generational game, as it shows the progress from a minion to a character, and it's also a good way to cover for a death in the party. All of a sudden, Bob dies. Well, Bob comes back, and we don't have time to stick somebody in, so he gets to play Bill the Pony.
Bob's character dies. Thank you very much. If I die in the middle of a game, I'm pretty sure you're not replacing me with a minion character.
With a pony?
You're all going to be broken up in tears.
Well, when the game is over. Anyway. All right. So, anyway, Phil?
Yeah, I'm just going to insert one extra one because I just thought of it. As a one-off, if you have a bunch of minions that the PCs have, you can have a Lower Decks episode.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can totally just do an adventure with your minions and just have like a complete diversion. Like, hey, the heroes are off like in the dungeon or whatever, and this crazy shit happens at camp. We're gonna play it out tonight, and it's gonna be the quartermaster and the scribe and Bill the pony, and literally, there's not even a pony. It's just Bill, like with two coconuts and
Clump.
right. Anyway, so you could totally do a Lower Decks. You could totally do a Lower Decks episode. It could be totally fun as a one shot.
Yeah.
Or another fun way to do that is you are all minions of like the supervillain, and you raid his vault of supervillain stuff to go out and raise some hell, whatever.
Cool.
All right. My other piece of advice: give your minions some details. Since you're on the player side of this, you're probably not going to have a ton of minions. So where we talked about before, like you generally don't give minions too much narrative detail, because you're only going to have a couple of them, and each player may only have like one or two hirelings anyway. Beef it up a little. Give them some names. Give them an appearance. Give them a personality. If it works best, again, when you have a few of them. If you have like 50 followers or something, like you're not going to name all those.
Yeah.
But if you have like a scribe and Bill the pony or whatever, like you can give them some detail, because it'll also create emotional investment, right? Because if we name it and we give them a personality, and especially if like they wind up having a good scene, like you're curmudgeonly. I'm just picturing the scene from Waiting, and Chi McBride is just kind of like the seasoned
dispensing wisdom from the kitchen.
Yeah, exactly. Like your camp cook is like suddenly giving you like some seriously profound advice for your character, that kind of thing. Like that can be like that can just breathe like a complete, like instead of just being like, oh yeah, I got a scribe, like having like having a little detail to it could add a lot to the in between parts of your game.
Yeah, the minions of the evil monarch in the Venture Brothers, they're all numbered like 23 and 51 and 32. But you don't want to just do that with your PC minions. Those people, you can spend a little extra on them, and Kenny the combat medic is much cooler for that scenario.
Kenny the combat medic, who has like some serious PTSD from being in the dungeons, right? Like he's just like completely wigged out. Like, I did not sign up for this.
Yeah.
Like, but also this is the most money I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
As Bob will tell you for a Band of Blades adventure, though, that Jerry will name all 50 henchmen and give them all personalities during any downtime at all.
I remember from the Sprawl as well, right? Yeah. Like Jerry's whole crew had names.
The Sprawl was nothing. In Band of Blades, we have 6 5-man teams plus our supports crew, plus our spies, plus the command structure, and every time we need them, we've got names for them and personalities and little minor descriptions. I loved that. That's something that's part of the metagaming part of gaming that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And so if you give me 50 henchmen as part of our player group, they will all have names by the end of the second or third week. And little quirks and personality types, and oftentimes we'll hand them off to other players to come up with ideas for. Go ahead.
And that's the thing is if you spend just a tiny bit of time, like we're going to give this person a name, give them like a personality quirk, a little something to work with, then when you have a scene where you're like someone else in the party their character's not present and they want to jump in and they want to play one of these minions, then you've given them some meat to chew on rather than just this blank slate with like, oh, okay, what should I do with this? Like on the fly, do I have to come up? No, they've got something to jump in with right out of the gate to give them something to work with when they start trying to portray this character.
Yeah, this is Ted the Spy. He's a little shorter than normal, and he has a secret lover that he doesn't talk about much but hints at. Go for it.
There you go.
That's all you need.
And speaking of which, Jerry.
Go ahead. All right. So, and this is why I've brought this up several times. Let the other people at the table play the minions. If your group's interacting, you have different people at the table voice your minions. You can make this a bit more complicated. You have to be careful because this can slow down progress as the players get into acting with all these characters. But it can be a lot of fun. If this is what your group is enjoying doing, great, let them do that. As a GM, take some notes. As a player, get into it and have a good time. On a side note, this is also a good time for GMs to make some notes about that side plot the characters suddenly uncover that you weren't prepared for. Let them go a little bit goofy with the characters while you do it. But this will make the minions more interested in the group as a whole. It often makes them much less expendable to make them possible romantic interests. I often find it amusing when I see players that hoard their resources constantly. Like, oh no, I have to save this killing potion in case I need it, and I have to be careful with this magic item. And all of a sudden, Bill the Pony gets injured, and the players blow all of their resources to trying to save Bill the Pony. Resources that they wouldn't even spend on each other at times to do this. And that becomes a lot of fun. And you could have whole... I've actually run games where the players decided that this week we just want to play all the minions this week. We want to have an adventure about the minions while something else is going on.
That's your Lower Deck episode.
Yep. And go for it. Let them do that. They become more interesting to everybody. So that's what I love that part of it as a player and as a GM. So,
all right. That's our look at minions and some advice for getting the most out of them at your table from both the GM and the player side. We're going to take a break. I've already seen some good comments and questions in the chat room, so we're going to address those. But first, Bob, tell us about another show on the Misdirected Mark Network.
Yes, so there's this fine show called Bonus Experience in which Ray and Monica will give you all kinds of fun gameplay and design stuff through the lens of diversity while also sharing some of the dumbest humor that gaming has to offer. It's a hoot, and it's fun, and it's good. Check it out.
There you go.
All right.
A ringing endorsement. It is good, fun.
Yes, it's good and fun. Yeah, so our friend the Weregator asked a fine question. How do you manage which level of minion knows how much and how long they'll hold out on giving that information up?
Yeah, so some of this has to go with understanding your bad guy, right? So if your bad guy is super paranoid, your minions aren't really going to know very much. If your bad guy is like some raging egomaniac, they probably know a decent amount because, you know, it's one of those things where, you know, you wind up having the company-wide meeting and like the big boss is like, behold our plan for conquering Central City. It's brilliant, I know, like as he's walking around showing the PowerPoint slides and stuff like that. I mean, you might know. And then whether they're going to give it up or not, right? There's a couple factors to this. We talked about the difference between hirelings and followers, right? Hirelings are probably going to have a reasonable limit, right? Like it's a job. I like my job a lot, but if you put a gun to my head, I'll tell you every plan my boss has.
Yep.
Right? Like I'm just, you know, like, yep. Well, let me tell you some stuff, like whatever. Followers are going to hold out more. Everybody, look, unless you're zealots, everybody breaks.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right? Your zealots are probably going to die before they give up anything. If you're wondering, like, minions have low stats. If you put a bit of a squeeze on them, you can at least make a roll to see if they're going to hold out.
Yep.
And, you know, like, it's not going to be a high bonus, so maybe, you know, it won't take too much work to get something useful out of them, you know. One, because, I mean, I'm not a person who does interrogation / torture in any detail, right? So, like, I default to just pushing that into a die roll and just dealing with the outcomes. So, yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, I think it's going to have a lot to do with understanding what kind of minion it is.
Yep.
And understanding a lot about the boss.
Yeah.
Jer, what do you got on that?
That's pretty much it. I kind of go the same way. I think that this is a good time to use that to give the players the information that they need. Just be prepared for it first, so that you know going into it what the players are going to get. I look at minions the same way I look at equipment. The old adage, never give your NPCs equipment that you don't want the players to get their hands on. And never give the minions information that you don't want the players to eventually know. Because they'll find it out. And if they do well enough, give it to them. You know, the boss can always change their plans or do something different or have things that, you know, we know the mayor is the bad guy, but we don't have proof of it except this guy's word.
Yep.
He's not going to say anything. He's not going to say anything in front of cameras. So we now know the mayor's not to be trusted, but what do we do next? That sort of thing.
And, you know, the other thing you can do is if you do want to give them the information, you can now put a timer on it, because it's like, this minion coughed up some information, but if this guy doesn't show up to work in the morning, like everybody's going to get wigged out.
Yep.
Like, you know, this guy can't not show up at the office, at the warehouse or whatever, because like everybody, you know, at the warehouse is on the take. And if he doesn't show up, everybody's going to get suspicious and come looking for him. Yep. So now the players get that piece of information, but they get it at a cost, which is you don't get all the time in the world to plan what you're going to do with that information. You now created a very small window.
Yep.
Which is great, because then players will rush through it.
Oh, yeah. And then from a completely different angle, if the minion you're dealing with is like super, super short, yellow, and is wearing goggles, they may spill their guts and say everything, but you ain't going to understand a word of it.
You're going to want to comprehend languages for that. Yeah. I mean, the thing is with minions, and I do this a lot. I do this a lot when I play, is that I will give thought, like, as I'm playing out combats. Like, there are times where like monsters or minions are like, oh, screw this, we're out of here.
Yep.
Like, yes, the boss told you to hold this like passageway, you know, with dear life, but at some point it's like, look, these players are mowing through us. Like, we got to fall back. We got to retreat. We're going to break ranks, whatever. I would say, you know what? On one hand, play them intelligently, and on the other hand, play them dramatically, right? So if it's way too early, like the players, you know, grab a street thug off the street and like put the screws to him, like, tell us what the boss is doing. Like, that's too easy, right? That just shortcuts all the work that the players are going to do. That guy doesn't know anything. No. But if you are on approach for the big finale and they snatch up a minion to squeeze for some information, yeah, give them something good.
Yeah.
Give them something good because that's where they're heading anyway. Yeah, give them something for that.
Yep.
But also don't be afraid to put like the clock, the timer, something like, well, this, this is true for my shift, but it'll change like in 2 hours. You can always put a wrinkle in whatever a minion knows.
Cool.
What else do we have going on in there?
Bob, you want to read Genesis of Legends? A little comment about what happens if Bob dies at the table.
Oh, geez, yeah. Hey, pizza guy, could you join our podcast? Our third host just died, and we need a stand-in. Thanks for the love.
That's not fair. We don't even have a pizza guy.
I know.
For a while, we had a favorite waitress at Mandarin Garden. She could have joined the podcast.
Sure. Especially if she brought egg rolls.
Egg rolls. God, I'm so sad that place is gone.
I miss those egg rolls.
Yeah.
To me, that's probably the thing that hit me the hardest during COVID was Mandarin Garden went away.
Yeah.
I say that somewhat hyperbolically, but also those egg rolls.
Mm-hmm.
They were so good. I've never been excited for egg rolls before. Any other questions in there?
We had a comment from Lemming127. Cool. Uniforms and tattoos can also indicate who you used to work for.
Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about we didn't even talk about the idea that like as a player background, you could have been the minion for a bad guy once before, right? Like that's like the turned, right? There's a what is it? There's a Once More Into the Void has that character type.
The Redeemed.
Yeah. So that like you could totally like be, having been a minion before, but now you're, on the other side. Finn.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
The Star Wars.
Yep.
FN 2187.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Is also a minion who turned.
Exactly.
Yep.
Cool.
So, yeah, those are good. Anything else we got in there?
No, I think we're good.
I was going to tell. I thought I had something I was going to mention.
Yeah. The story about the damn it. I'm helping.
Right.
Wow, you're breaking up tremendously there, Phil.
Yeah.
That was weird. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll have to remember for the next break. I'm terrible.
All right, never mind. Maybe we'll get it. Maybe we'll get it at the end of the segment.
Yep. All right, so let's roll back into our discussion of minions with our 3 roundtable questions, starting with this one.
Question number 1. Name one of your favorite times as a GM using minions in a scene or a game.
For me, was a Savage World or Savage Eberron game from actually the early days of COVID. The party had spent time allying with a local hobgoblin tribe that they met. Instead of just charging and fighting them, they traded with them, they negotiated with them, they actually healed the leader, and just spent a lot of time being the hobgoblins. So later on, when they were in a situation where they either were going to have to do guerrilla tactics and pick out a bunch of bad guys one at a time, or just get overrun, they played a card that allowed them to summon minions. So I had the hobgoblins show up. But because the players had taken time to develop the relationship with these one-off minions, and actually talked to me when playing the card about why the minions would show up, I had them show up with a little better ability than normal. And then the party went on to use them to build defenses and set up parts of the deserted town to help repel overwhelming numbers of the Emerald, Claw Soldiers, and the Undead. So when we got to the point, I did just what Phil talked about earlier. I divided the minions up into little squads of 2 to 4 and treated each squad instead of as individual minions, but as basically those 3 created the equivalent of a player character or a wild card. So minions in Savage Worlds, where the players get to roll a stat plus an extra die, normal NPCs just roll 1 die. As a group, they could roll 1 die plus the extra die, and it made the game go much faster, but also let the players make decisions and roll the dice. And it ended up being something that allowed the players each make their own actions more epic, because they could have the minions hold off a couple of flunkies while they went toe-to-toe with one of the named NPCs. They could drop. Dead falls on them and such. And they even spent a few of their own actions saving the minions. There's a point where Jen Monheim did this whole heroic rope swing while running across the side of a wall to jump down in and tackle a bunch of bad guys who were about to take out a bunch of minions kind of thing. And it just went really, really well. And we used a combination of letting the players control the minions, using mob rules, and it turned what would have just been a long night of slogging combat as the players hacked their way through group after group of bad guys into kind of an epic, fun little encounter, and gave the players access to things they wouldn't have had. One of the melee characters ended up running a group of minions that were all shooters, and so got to try kind of play around with a character who was good at long range for a little while. So it was just a lot of fun. It was kind of epic. Actually, if you follow me on Facebook, there's pictures of that adventure a year ago. But it was just a lot of fun, and I liked the way all the players jumped into it and kind of used the rules of the game and then some house ruling stuff to make it more fun. So that was my favorite recent minion adventure. Bill?
Yeah, years and years ago, when I was running Iron Heroes, I to make a long story short, there was this lost city named Ceradome that the players found, and it was overrun with undead, which was all leading up to this temple. And I believe that ultimately Bob had to this magical energy that Bob was carrying with him needed to be placed in the temple in order to end the curse and all of that. But in order to get to the temple, I had a battle mat out, and I put something like 40 skeletons on the battle mat and put the players on the opposite side of put the temple on one side, the players on the other, and like 40 skeletons in between. And these are Iron Hero players. So, and they were like mid-level Iron Hero players. So they had so again, because a lot of people didn't play Iron Heroes, but they had like Cleave 4 and multi-shot and 2-weapon fighting, and they were just like one-hit die skeletons. And I was like, okay, roll for initiative, and they just plowed their way into those skeletons. And it was a fun encounter, and it was tedious and long because there were no mob rules for it or anything, and so I just attacked, but they were reasonably high enough armor class that like most of those attacks did not hit. And they just went a killing. And it was just fun to watch. Like the battle mat was like full of tokens, and they're just, we're taking them off one end, like, oh, that one's killed. They were using like all their abilities. Like it was just fun, right? It was just and it was cool because it just like that led up to like, that was the fight to get into the temple. And it looked like an action movie, right? Like they rounded the corner, like in the city, and they're like, all right, we just got to get to the temple. And then it's just like this sea of skeletons. And they're like, yep, let's do this.
Cracked our knuckles and we waded in.
Yeah.
Now the sad part to that story is that after my character placed the seal down and lifted the curse, the people that were dead came back.
Yeah.
And we didn't know that was going to happen.
Yeah.
So if we had known that, we would have tried not to kill those skeletons and like tried to just get through in some fashion. But we didn't know that was going to happen.
I can't remember if everybody came back. I don't know if I ever clarified.
I don't know if it was everybody or not.
The zombies came back.
Yeah.
But I think like skeletons were like too far gone.
Maybe.
I feel like I wanted to say that, and whether I did or didn't might be a different question.
That was an epic encounter though. Just wading through a sea of minions. Just
Plus Iron Heroes is like so jacked up on martial combat that like what Cleave 4 was, if I remember, like Cleave had multiple levels. So like if you cleaved once and you got to attack the opponent next to you, but if you killed that one, like you could cleave another time.
Yeah.
And like somebody went like on like a I think like a six straight cleave like spree or something in one turn. It was grand.
Yeah.
All right.
Good times.
Jer.
All right. So as a player, you often use minions, henchmen, sidekicks, etc., in your games?
Yeah. As a player, no. Like I don't. And I kind of wonder why I don't. I probably should think about it more when I'm playing a game. Like if I could have minions or like a hireling or something. I never think about it. Like I never think like, oh, we should just get a person to do that or whatever. So no, I think I want to though. Depending on what I play next.
Yeah.
I definitely think I want to kind of make that investment in having like a little extra help. But my concern is always like, I don't want to get them killed, or am I going to have enough money to pay for them? And I got to kind of just get over that.
Yeah.
Like, don't overthink it and just do it.
Yep.
How about you, Jared?
All right. Well, I love having minions and other characters to play off of, whether they're familiars or invisible servants. And I mean, any game I'm in, Bob knows this from the Everon game. Like I played a spellcaster who had aerial servant. I named it. That's the thing I'll do. In a sprawl, my fixer has a stable of minions who casts and act as backup. Most of the GMs I have let the players take the role of minions, either our own or others. So we use this again as we go. Any option I have to get extra minions and such, I mean, I will forego buying that new magic sword if I could spend that money to get another minion or a talking horse or a flying cat or somebody who tucks me in at night when I go to sleep. Whatever, I'll do that every time. You give me a chance to have minions, I will take them. I don't know what that says about me, but I love having minions and and treating them well. I don't treat my minions like funky. I want my minions to survive. I will keep them back at the camp. And I like that for things when we do have to do. I've played in adventures where with some more punishing GMs who do the thing with, so who's going to watch the horses while you're in the dungeon? Ha ha ha. Well, fine. I'm going to hire like 3 handlers and 2 bodyguards, and that's their job. Real quick, when we played BattleTech years and years ago, instead of buying a mech upgrade, I spent the money to hire a platoon of soldiers for an entire season, so that whenever we had to get out of our mech, we had bodyguards.
Nice.
I love doing that, and I've been doing it for 30 years now. So, Bob?
Yeah, so I don't recall having done it in the past with other games, but we're essentially doing it in our Forbidden Lands game with all the support personnel that we have at Weatherstone, our keep. That's essentially what they are. They're all minions. So we're definitely doing it right now, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean they're basically support. They're basically support minions. They don't go out on frontline stuff with you. Right. They make sure that like your stronghold is kept, and is it's kept, and no one's taking it over, that kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. We named all of them.
Oh yeah,
like they all have names. They're
have
on the
kind
sheet.
Of personalities to a certain degree. They're not super fleshed out, but.
Well, and it's fun because they came in a couple different ways. Some of them were NPCs from the actual adventures.
Yep.
That you just like convert. Like Cordomor was like a survivor from one of the adventures that like the original adventure you went on to capture Weatherstone. And then like Nin, like he was just an NPC I made up because you guys were camping in the shanty town.
Yep.
Outside of one of the other towns. Yep. And then you were the ones who were like, why don't you come back with us? We'll give you a job.
Yeah, instead of sleeping in this tent outside the walls of the city where the Rust Brother is ruling with an iron fist, come up and hang out with us. We'll give you a job. You get a roof over your head.
I particularly like the orc and the human couple that run the
they run the inn.
They run the inn. You wandered into an encounter where they were getting married in the woods.
Yep.
And after like a whole bunch of shit happened, you were like, why don't you guys come up? Like, if you're looking to retire from adventuring, why don't you just come up to our stronghold and like we could find you something to do?
Mm-hmm.
So now they're the proprietors of the inn that the heroes built.
Yep.
And they're great. Like they all like they just collected them from different places. And then I think the other thing that they did was there were a couple times when they went looking for people.
Yeah.
So they went to like the nearby town, made some checks, and like found a few people. And that's how you found Girl in May.
Yep.
Your handy person.
Yep.
Who
I have
keeps
to
your
say-
stronghold running?
I think one of the earliest inspirations for minions was probably from, I think it was Lost Caverns of Sojikan, which has a picture of a wizard trying to fight a demon, and he's standing there casting a spell, and there's obviously some minions there. One's holding the book open for him, one's waving
The
a
caddy.
brazier in the air, one's got, a caddy. And that's the story we're going to tell, the caddy
Yes.
story. And one's holding, but I like that idea that a player might have these flunkies that are going to be standing next to them that are just doing all the extra stuff that makes their job easier. So before we go on to questions, tell the caddy story real quick, Phil.
Yeah, it's funny because it's actually it's kind of a meta story. But a while ago, we had conceptualized a little comedy bit of a role playing caddy, like
GM
you,
caddy.
the player, like have a caddy that like is like sitting with you at the table, and you're like, I'm gonna cast fireball, and I'm gonna put it, and you like point to the table, and you like look at the caddy, and the caddy's like, mm. You like move your finger over, and the caddy's like, mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Here, I'm gonna put the fireball here, right? And then all right, look, I need a 17 or higher, and you hold out your hand, and they go through the dice and put the D20 that tends to roll higher in your hand. We had like a whole skit about like these professional caddies, and then it was about them in a back room at Gen Con sitting around complaining about their players. That's what the
oh, that's great.
You think you got it bad? My guy's got an 18th level wizard. That guy doesn't know how any of the spells work, right? Like,
yep.
There was a comic strip in the old Buffalo Adventure Games and Hobbies newsletter that we did every month, and one of them was the adventures of the caddy who carried around all the extra swords for all the players that kept picking up stuff and wouldn't throw anything away. And
yeah, there you go.
There's a good thing for that.
Yep.
All right. Next
Question
Bob?
3. So, what is your favorite game system for handling minions?
For me, it's going to be the Genesis Fantasy Flight Star Wars. Minions are a simple mob with simple bonuses and die increases, and the players attack them as a mob. And as you whittle away at them, the die increases go down. So it makes it really easy to have a battle between a bunch of rebels and some stormtroopers, or to suddenly have a gang of swoop-like mercenaries show up and not overwhelm the players, but still makes the minions dangerous. It makes more minions dangerous. A group of 2 minions is less dangerous than a group of 4 minions, just as Phil said earlier. Larger mobs. It's a simple rule system. It sounds like they borrowed a lot of the ideas from Fate, and it's a system that I've actually used for other. I've adapted to other game systems when I want to have a group of minions that can be dangerous but not PPKing the party but making a challenge. It's just to group them up. If you're going to do, even in games like D20, Savage World, Barbarians Lemuria, just using the mob rules makes it much easier. So, Phil?
Fate's my choice. I really like Fate. A typical minion might be like a 1 stress box, maybe a +1. And maybe they have maybe they have a simple aspect or something. When you group them up, you just raise up their bonuses and you just add stress boxes, right? And it's just, taking advantage of that Fate fractal thing where I can just, I can add more stress. I could add consequences if the mob was large enough, or I could just give them a whole mess of stress boxes. Depends. And then, I can just scale up, their attack goes from like a +1. Their attack now goes up to, like a +3, +4 if they're a large enough mob. I like that. It's super easy. And if big enough mob, or if it's a specialty mob, like, maybe they're a particular faction of the world revolutionaries or something. So I could slap an extra, aspect on them. Like, they're particular, like, death from above, that kind of thing. So yeah, Fate just makes that like really cool, really simple. It's it's very fluid, right? About how you want to set up your oppositions for conflicts.
Cool.
How about you, Bob?
Yeah, so I don't honestly remember all of the rules that they had, but the 4th edition D&D rules had a set of minion rules. And I ran it for a year, and I had a lot of fun with it. It was good for the system, and it was good for the group that I was playing with. So I really enjoyed getting to implement those. Again, it did all the things like, here's a horde of creatures in this room. Like, oh God, what are we going to do? Well, they're all minions. So the players wade in and start hacking away, and it makes them feel badass and super competent and all that stuff. Like it did what it was supposed to do, and it wasn't hard to adjudicate. So I really enjoyed that.
If my quick skimming of the internet tells me anything, minions are destroyed when they take any amount of damage.
Yep.
So as long as you just hit them, they're dead.
Yep.
They take no damage from missile attacks, though. I don't think we ever used that rule correctly.
I remember that rule now, and I think we did, but I don't know. That was one of those weird corner things about, like, why would you not take damage from a missile? Obviously it's more fun to wade into them hand to hand than to just sit back and go plunk, 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 plunk. Okay, they're all gone. Like, but yeah, I enjoyed that system.
Knocking them down with a single hit's great, right? Because it's just like, and that's it, right? They're meat shielding.
Yep.
Like, there's no trample damage, so that cool 36-point hit you did, I just killed the minion.
Yeah.
That's it. Just kill the minion. So good.
All right.
So that's our episode on minions.
Yeah, we hope this helps you out next time you are dropping some minions on your game. Hopefully you can put some of this advice to use.
Awesome. Now we're going to check in one more time with the chat room before we head over to the conversation corner. And I
think we answered all the questions.
I think we're all good. Oh, Gator actually asked, what's the fantasy game where you play the minions after the party just got TPK'd? And I honestly
so
don't
familiar.
know.
I don't think it's Torchbearer. Torchbearer, you play like Tomb Raiders and stuff, like trying to gather up everything you can carry. Tomb Raider's like the gritty version of playing, of a dungeon crawl.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, it sounds.
It's
so
not ringing
familiar.
any bells for me, so I got nothing.
Yeah, I'll Google a little while we're chilling in the conversation corner, see if I can't scare something up.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, let's roll on over there. Boing, 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 boing.
Mm-hmm.
So, this past Sunday, we had our iHunt session, which is quite possibly our last remote iHunt session for the foreseeable future. We're probably going to go back to face for the next one. Unless somebody's ill or we need to do a remote for some reason. And again, it was everything that one could expect from a game with myself, Tony, and Glenn as the characters. We went up against the douchey rich guy who was using magic to try and extort the neighborhood to try and buy their homes at super low prices so that he could, make a mint on the resale and or knock them all down for development or whatever. And when it became apparent that he was definitely using magic and out to harm people with that magic, it's like, he's a monster. He's officially a monster. We're going to take him down. And that means extinguish, kill, snuff, whatever word you want to use. And Tony's character, Gio, suddenly had this major crisis of conscience. Like, should we be doing this? Can I take this dude's life? Like, what are we doing here? And it's like, no, do it. It's he deserved it.
And I had to be the heavy, right? Because I was like, quick reminder, you spent the only $300 you had getting your buddy out of lockup yesterday morning. Your financial situation, the fragile tension of your financial situation has been completely disrupted.
Yep.
And there's a $5,000 contract for killing this guy.
Yeah. Although technically the contract didn't specifically say, quote unquote, kill, but It said fix the problem.
It said fix in quotes.
Fix in quotes. So
it was fix in quotes, and you learned it was from a drug dealer. I think you understand.
Fairly confident that
confident you executed the contract correctly. Yes. The fight was good though.
Yeah, it was an entertaining combat. It had all of the the good fate bits. We set up a ton of aspects on the table, and then people were like, no, got to use this, and this to boost my roll. Need to use this, and this. It was a good time. And
I'll just mention because Jason is saying forcible relocation would have worked. Yeah, forcible relocation would not have worked. First of all, the conceit of the game is you kill monsters. That is one of the conceits of the game of iHunt is like you are out there killing monsters. Second of all, wizards, especially these wizards, are extremely privileged. There's nothing you could do to this wizard in the confines of any kind of legal system or anything else that would have had like you would have been unable to affect that.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the aspects you knew he had was, do you know my father?
Yes, perhaps you know my father. It's like, oh, great, yeah.
No, but it is. So it is. I mean, like the ugly part of iHunt is that like you're killing monsters because you're trying not to be broke and lose like your apartment.
Trying not to lose your apartment. Trying to
afford medication, and I mean, and rightfully so. The true horror of iHunt is not hunting monsters.
Yep.
The true horror of iHunt is living in this capitalism apocalypse.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good times. Mm-hmm. Finally finished up She-Ra season 5. That finale was amazing. And then of course I saw the announcement that they're gonna do a season 6, which Senda was like, oh, how do you season 6 after that ending? It's like, well, they're gonna. So it will be a thing. But that show did so many things, much like Steven Universe before it. So many positive messages and, inclusive things. And like, it's just a well written show for everything that it's doing. And it was a good time. So looking forward to season 6 of that. Still cruising along playing Valheim. Now to the point where with better gear, feeling a little froggy and, taking some more chances. I went up on a mountain by myself, stuff like that. Things that used to be like, oh, we don't go there. We're like, oh, let's go there. Let's, let's do this. Let's do that. So, and then of course, this week has been, a lot of prep for, my housemate moving out, which the movers were here today. And so there was that whole thing. And now I get to start working on my own reclaiming of the house as the sole occupant. A lot of the furniture was my housemate's. A lot of the aesthetic, it was a woman's touch, so there are things that, that are going to go back to being, dude did this, I have a little bit of a sense of style, but it's not going to be like, super coordinated and all this other shit. It's going to be functional. Plus, I don't want to do anything over the top because my plan is to get the hell out of this house now that it's just me, put it up for sale, get myself a nice condo and go from there. So I'm not going to.
I think that's a better plan.
Yeah. So that's me.
I remember when I first moved back from Auburn back to Buffalo. When I lived by myself in the house, when it came time to start packing things up, and I realized that after 20 years in the house, there were actually 3 things on the wall that I put up, and that was it. I hadn't decorated the house for 20 years except with just shelves full of game stuff, which is why it was tough to move into this place because I was still living here. I hadn't put anything up yet.
Yeah.
Then my wife moved in, and she did a much better job of making the place look like a place instead of a giant warehouse full of Legos.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right, Jer, what else is going on with you?
Well, I'm about halfway through season 2 of She-Ra, so I've been enjoying it as well. Watched the first couple episodes of MODOK, the new Marvel show. It's okay. It's basically a half-hour episode of Robot Chicken. If you like Robot Chicken, you'll like MODOK. It's some of the jokes kind of fall flat, and it's very non-canon, but the Easter eggs are constant, and it's got a lot of Marvel in humor. It's definitely a comedy. It's fun. It's give it a good 7 out of 10. Valheim has been just a lot of fun. Since we got the new gear and Bob and I did a lot of practice together doing a lot of things, there were lots of parts of the game, parts of the map that were just no-go zones for us. We expanded until we hit a swamp or a plains or a mountain. That's where you stopped. We would go, oops, there's swamp. We're not going any further. Now we're exploring the swamps and seeing a lot more of the map and finding neat little things and discovering more fun stuff. And it's been a lot of fun. And I really like the teamwork aspect of it. There's been a lot of stuff that we've done where just the two of us have gone in to do different things where, oh, I want to know what's over there. So do me a favor. Watch my back while I go over there so I don't get jumped on by a goblin or whatever. And so it's been a lot of exploration. We've got a little overboard with building things. We will often go to a spot like, oh, look, there's a little like structure. Let's go put, a couple of beds in a fire pit and a crafting station in there to make it a place we can stay in, a nice little like 5x5 building. And 4 hours later, it's 4 stories tall and reinforced with stone. And there's a complete foundry in it because that's what we do. We tend to, we go farther. This was the last week of Kids on Brooms, and it's Glenn runs an amazing game. He does a really good job with 5 players in Zoom, making sure that every player gets to shine and kind of get their spotlight and still interact. It was a lot of fun. And we were thinking about doing Low Stakes as our next game, which is another Craig Campbell game, which is basically the RPG version of What We Do in Shadows. And that's when I realized I hadn't seen What We Do in Shadows, so I got it on YouTube. It was cheap and watched it. So I watched that this weekend. It was a lot of fun. Very, very fun little show, or movie, which is about basically a comedy by the director of Thor Ragnarok about 4 modern vampires sharing a flat in New Zealand, and all the silliness that goes along with that. So that's why I had a good time. Phil?
Yeah, Bob touched on iHunt. I talked about Sunstone Mercy earlier. Continued watching Voyager. Still binging Blacklist. I'm still at the point where they haven't jumped the shark yet, so just kind of letting that roll in the mornings and stuff. I don't know if I've done anything else. I took some bike rides. I think that's probably it.
Okay. Well, then let's go to our Patreon shout-outs. Bob?
And Phil, we have one queued up just for you.
I got it.
All right. So thank you once again to our patrons, Brian King, Brian Kurtz,
Chris Steele,
Cubano, Curtis Y. Takahashi, Eileen Barnes, Eric Mengi, JT Evans, Jared Rasher, and Jen Pixelscape Skagny. And thank you to everyone for listening tonight.
If you are free on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. the Queen's time, come join us live on Twitch, where you can chat with the other listeners in the awesome chat room for life and ask us the occasional questions.
And if you cannot make the live show, check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcasts. Take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Mastery Dungeons, Bone Sword Obsidian, the FM Gamers, Pat is Talking Games, the Gnome Cast, Sean Who Hustle, The Lounge, Bonus Experience, and back episodes of She's Super Geek. You can and should also check out our sibling podcasts, Tabletop Bellhop, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS.
After you have dispatched your minions and before they return home in body bags, leave us some feedback. You can reach us directly via email, mmp@misdirectedmark.com. You can hit us up on Twitter. The show and the network is @misdirectedmark. He's Robert M. Everson. He's GM Gerrymander, and I am DNA Phil.
If you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaigns. MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Panda Stocking Games are at patreon.com/MMP. Zhangu Hustle is at patreon.com/Zhangu Hustle, and Bonus Experience is at patreon.com/Bonus Experience. Patrons of MMP, Mastering Dungeons, and Panda Stocking Games get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Bamboo Lounge, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, the media arm of Encoded Designs. Mic drop.
We out.